What if your sister was supposed to marry the billionaire, but you walked down the aisle instead? This isn't just a love story. It's full of secrets, betrayal, a contract, and a baby that changed everything. Stick around to see how one unexpected wedding turned into a love that broke every rule. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't miss a second of this story.
I never thought I'd see my sister's wedding dress on my body. I never thought I'd be stepping into her shoes, quite literally, to marry a man she never loved and I never knew I wanted. The morning of the wedding, Anne was a hurricane in satin. Hair perfect, lashes curled, lips the color of expensive wine. But her hands wouldn't stop trembling. She kept glancing at her phone, pacing the marble floor of the bridal suite like a prisoner waiting for a jailbreak. "Are you sure you're okay?" I asked, holding her veil like it might bite, and turned, eyes sharp.
No, Jessica, I'm not okay. You don't marry a man because your father tells you to. You don't sign your life away in a white dress for the sake of a merger.
I didn't say anything. What could I say? And then she was gone. No note, no call, just silence, and an empty veil still draped over my arm. The chaos that followed, you can't even imagine. My mother crying, my father swearing into the phone, trying to stop the shareholders from panicking. The De Lucas threatening to dissolve the deal. A billion-dollar fusion about to go up in smoke because of a runaway bride. That's when he looked at me. My father. Cold. Calculated.
You're the same size, same blood. No one will know.
And I said yes. I still don't know why. Maybe because I was terrified of what would happen if I didn't. Maybe because I always lived in Anne's shadow. Maybe because I wanted to feel what it was like to be chosen, even if it was a lie. The moment I stepped into that dress, I felt the weight of 1,000 eyes I hadn't even met yet. The lace was delicate, but the meaning behind it was suffocating. My heart pounded so loud I couldn't hear the music when I walked down the aisle. And then I saw him, Rafael De Luca, tall, devastating, and furious. He stood there in his tuxedo like sin in human form, his jaw tight, those storm gray eyes raking over me like I was a problem he had to solve. He didn't smile, didn't blink, but his gaze dropped, slowly, to the neckline of the dress that wasn't meant for me. And when he took my hand at the altar, his touch was fire and ice.
"You're not Ain,"
he said, voice low and dangerous, only for me to hear. "No," I whispered. She ran. A pause. A beat.
"And you came willingly?"
I met his eyes. I couldn't breathe. Would you believe me if I said yes? His lips tilted just a fraction. Not a smile, something darker. Something curious. The priest kept talking, words I barely registered. Raphael didn't look away from me once. And when he kissed me, that fake, cold, perfect kiss for the cameras, my knees almost buckled. Because it didn't feel fake at all. It felt like the beginning of something I should have run from. But I didn't. I kissed him back. And just like that, Jessica Morgan became Mrs. De Luca. God help me.
When they told me and had backed out, I didn't react. I didn't throw a fit. I didn't shout or curse or smash a whiskey glass against the wall. I simply leaned back in the leather chair of the De Luca estate office, loosened my cufflinks and said, "Then find someone who won't. Because I don't lose. Not in business. Not in marriage. Not in reputation. This merger was too valuable to let a cold-footed heiress ruin everything, and was just a necessary piece of a bigger puzzle. Polished, predictable, agreeable. Someone I could manage. So when her father called and said the replacement had been handled, I said fine. I didn't care who put on the damn dress. I'd stand at the altar, give the performance, sign the papers, and get the deal done. That was the plan. Until she walked in. The music swelled. The doors opened, and she stepped into my world like a lit match in a room full of gasoline. Not Ain. This woman wasn't polished. She wasn't predictable. She wasn't anything I expected. Black hair, sleek and sharp, kissed her shoulders, like midnight silk. Her eyes, darker, deeper, locked on mine like they belonged to someone who didn't give a damn what I thought. She didn't hesitate. She didn't stumble. She owned that aisle. And when she reached me, she didn't pretend to be your sister. She didn't whisper apologies or explanations. She just lifted her chin, looked me straight in the eyes, and dared me to say something. For the first time in years, I was speechless because I felt something, a flicker, a burn low in my gut that had no place at a wedding built on convenience.
I'm not Ain.
No shit. Who the hell are you? I muttered, leaning in so the crowd wouldn't hear.
Jessica. Her sister.
Her lips didn't tremble. Her sister. Jesus Christ. Of all the plays Richard Morgan could make, this was reckless and bold and completely insane. I should have stopped it right then. I should have walked away and let the deal burn. But instead, I took her hand. She was warm, too warm. And as the priest spoke and the audience watched, I realized something dangerous. I wanted to know what her skin tasted like. I wanted to know what made her lips curve like that when she was being defiant. I wanted to know why, when she looked at me, it didn't feel like negotiation or war. It felt like temptation wrapped in lace. I was marrying a stranger, and I already wanted to undress her.
If pretending to be Ain wasn't already exhausting, pretending I didn't notice how Rafael looked at me was its own kind of torture. The marriage had happened. The press bought the lie. And now we were playing house in his penthouse, a glass fortress of secrets, silence, and temptation. We hadn't spoken much since the ceremony. A polite nod over breakfast. A silent car ride to a charity event. I slept in the guest suite, behind a cold white door that never seemed to fully shut out the man who lived just down the hall. He didn't try anything. He didn't need to, because Rafael De Luca was already in my head. It didn't help that he looked like sin carved in marble, tall, tailored, with that careless confidence of a man who knew exactly how devastating he was. And I hated that I noticed. I hated even more that he noticed that I noticed. But I was here for a reason. To protect my family. To keep this lie from becoming a scandal. This was a job, not a romance. And yet, that night, God, that night I walked straight into a moment I couldn't take back. The shower in the guest room was acting up. No hot water. Housekeeper gone for the weekend. I hesitated, stared at the master bedroom for too long, then cursed under my breath and went in. His bathroom was massive. Marble, gold, heated floors. The water was perfect, hot, clean, fogging up the mirror as I wrapped myself in a thick white towel and stepped into the bedroom to grab my clothes. That's when I heard the door. I froze. He froze. Rafael stood in the doorway like a storm in a suit, his tie loosened, his eyes dark and sharp. Our gazes locked. His eyes dropped, and the towel slipped. No sound, just my heart crashing against my ribs and his breath catching like he'd just been punched. He didn't look away. Not right away. And neither did I. Because for a split second, one dangerous, stupid second, I wanted him to see me. Not as Anne's replacement. Not as the girl shoved into a designer dress and pushed down the aisle. But as me, Jessica, his wife. His naked wife. My hands moved too late. The towel was back up. My cheeks on fire. My breath caught in my throat as I darted past him, my clothes clutched against my chest. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. And he didn't stop me. But when I reached my door and looked back, he was still standing there, watching. And I knew in that moment, this marriage might have started as a lie. But nothing about what I felt in that room was pretend.
This was supposed to be business, a transaction. A contract signed in ink, not lust. But no clause had prepared me for Jessica. I told myself it was temporary, that her body in that towel, the way her skin glistened with steam, the curve of her hip, the moment that damn fabric slid to the floor was a fluke, an accident, something to be buried beneath board meetings and balance sheets. But no matter how many zeros I added to a deal, nothing erased that image from my mind. She haunted me, not in the way Ain ever did. No, Ain was elegance, polish, predictability. A good match for De Luca on paper. Jessica was chaos wrapped in black silk. She laughed with her whole body. She challenged everything I said. She had this way of looking at me like she already knew the man underneath the suit and still wasn't sure if she liked him. I should have kept my distance. Instead, I watched her when she wasn't looking, followed the sound of her bare feet on the hardwood like a goddamn addict, memorized the scent she left behind in every room, a whisper of vanilla and something warmer, something unmistakably her. I told myself I had control, that I wouldn't cross the line. And then last night I woke up sweating hard as steel, with her name on my lips. Jessica, not Ain, not once. My hand slipped beneath the sheets, desperate, aching. But even in the darkness, even with my eyes squeezed shut, I could see her, standing in my bedroom, her body wet, the towel slipping from her fingers, the curve of her breasts, the shadow between her thighs, her mouth parted in surprise, and something else, something that didn't feel like fear. It felt like invitation. I came undone with her name in my throat, and the shame didn't hit until morning. Because this wasn't just wrong, it was reckless. A few weeks ago, the world thought I was dating her sister. The press never showed Anne's face, just hints. Long black hair, a last name. The Morgan heiress. No one knew there were two, but I did. And now, the wrong sister sleeps under my roof. No, not wrong. The right one, which makes it so much worse. Because this isn't a love story. It's a goddamn lie in a three-piece suit. And I'm about to burn in it.
The storm came out of nowhere. It shattered the silence like a scream, thunder cracking so loud it rattled the windows of the estate. I couldn't sleep, not with the wind howling like that, not with my thoughts spinning so violently inside me. So I slipped out of bed, barefoot, wrapped in one of Rafael's oversized sweaters I'd stolen from the laundry, and wandered down to the great room. The fire was still lit. Its glow danced across the marble floor like it was trying to keep secrets. I curled up on the rug in front of it, needing the warmth, the illusion of safety. And that's when I heard the sound of footsteps, quiet, unhurried, unmistakable. Rafael. I didn't look back, but I felt him. He stopped behind me. I could almost hear the moment he decided to come closer, the way his breath deepened, the way something in the air pulled tighter.
Couldn't sleep?
He asked, his voice low, like the night itself. Too loud, I whispered, without turning. The storm, his warmth settled beside me. No space between us. The heat of his bare skin brushed my arm, and suddenly, I wasn't thinking about the storm anymore. I turned to look at him. God. The firelight turned his olive skin to bronze, his eyes darker than I'd ever seen them. He wasn't wearing a shirt, and my breath caught when I saw the lines of his chest, the way his muscles tensed under my gaze. My pulse stuttered, not in fear, but in anticipation. He stared at me like I was a secret he was dying to taste. Then his fingers brushed my jaw, and the moment shattered. His lips found mine, soft at first, then hungrily, like he'd been starving and finally gave in. My fingers tangled in his hair as he pushed me back onto the rug, his body settling over mine with a reverence I didn't expect. He tugged the sweater up slowly, like unwrapping something forbidden. When he saw I wore nothing beneath it, he inhaled sharply.
Jesus, you're gonna ruin me.
His words made my skin burn. He kissed down my neck, then lower, exploring with hands and mouth, drawing sounds from me I didn't know I could make. Every nerve in my body was awake, begging, trembling, the fire painting flickers of gold across our bodies. His touch was everywhere, exploring, teasing, reverent, and unhurried. And then, when his body aligned with mine, and he pressed into me, a sharp pain sliced through me. I gasped. My hands gripped his shoulders, trying to steady myself. His movements stopped instantly. He looked down at me, eyes filled with confusion and something tender.
Jess, did I hurt you?
He murmured. I forced a soft smile. No, it's just been a while. It wasn't a lie. Not completely. I just didn't tell him the whole truth, that it hadn't just been a while. That this was the first time. That he was the first. But I wasn't ready for him to know that. I wanted this night to be about desire, not pity, not questions, not explanations. So I kissed him again, slow and deep, wrapping my legs around him, guiding him back in. The sting didn't vanish, not right away, but it changed, melted into warmth, into something full and heady and overwhelming. He moved inside me with aching care at first, like he was afraid I might break. But I didn't. I burned. We became rhythm, breath and skin, and whispers in the dark. His name was a moan against my lips. Mine was a growl in his throat. And when we finally fell together, bodies slick, mouths locked, hearts out of rhythm, I didn't want it to end. I didn't want to go back to pretending. Afterward, we didn't speak. He wrapped an arm around me, pulling me against his chest, and I let myself listen to the sound of his heart slowing down, the heat of his skin against mine. His fingers traced lazy circles along my shoulder. I knew this was dangerous. I knew this wasn't just physical, not anymore. And I knew, eventually, I'd have to tell him. But not tonight. Tonight, I just wanted to memorize the way it felt to be wanted, to be touched like this, to belong, even if only for a moment, to someone like Rafael De Luca. Even if the truth might ruin everything later.
They say the ocean has no memory, but every time I closed my eyes on that damn yacht, I could still feel her skin against mine. I told myself this trip was strategy, a controlled response to a brewing media firestorm. Some gossip site had run a speculative piece about the wedding, about how the wrong sister might have walked down the aisle. It was vague, faceless, like most rumors. A blurry photo of Ain from months ago. Nothing clear enough to start a war, but enough to plant a seed. My solution? Take Jessica far from a city, far from the whispers. Let the cameras see us on deck, drinking champagne, sun on her bare shoulders, my hand at the small of her back. Let the world believe this was a plan all along. That Jessica was always the woman I wanted. But the truth? The moment we stepped aboard the yacht, it stopped being about the press. I watched her stand at the edge of the bow that first morning, wind tangling her hair, her sundress dancing around her thighs, and my body reacted like it had been craving her for years. Not days, not weeks, years. I was losing the war I started, and by nightfall, I didn't even want to win. She came to me in the dark, barefoot, wrapped in one of my button-downs. It hung off her like sin, just long enough to make me wonder if she was wearing anything underneath. She wasn't. I didn't ask her to come closer. She just did, like she knew I'd never turn her away. Her fingers slid under the fabric of my shirt, nails tracing the lines of my chest, my stomach, my hips. My control didn't break, it shattered. We didn't even make it to the bed that first night. We didn't need it. The floor of the master cabin was cool against her back. Her breath hitched when I pressed into her, my mouth hot on her throat, her hands in my hair, dragging me deeper. It was rough for this time, like we'd both been holding back too long. The way she moaned into my ear, the way her body tightened around me, the way she looked at me, like I was the only real thing in her world. It undid me. I told myself it would be once. It wasn't. Every day, every night, we found new ways to unravel each other. I took her against a glass door at sunrise, her palms pressed flat to the window, the ocean stretching endlessly behind us. I watched her reflection twist in pleasure as I moved inside her, her name a growl against her spine. I had her on the bed at noon, the sun pouring through the skylight, painting her golden and wild beneath me, her thighs wrapped around my waist, her lips parting in surrender, in invitation, in need. At night, we made love in the outdoor jacuzzi, steam curling around our bodies as she rode me slow, my hands gripping her hips, her breasts glistening in the moonlight. It wasn't just sex, it was obsession, madness, something deeper than either of us dared name. But when morning came, and she curled into me like she belonged there, that's when I felt the real danger. Because this wasn't just about hiding from the headlines anymore. This was about hiding from myself. Every time she looked at me with those eyes, every time her lips whispered my name like a secret, I forgot the rules, the contract, the past, and out there, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by sea and sky and nothing else, I started to forget that Jessica was never supposed to be mine, and I wasn't sure I wanted to remember.
The moment we stepped off the yacht, I felt it, the shift. Like waking from a dream you didn't want to end. Salt still clung to my skin, sun still warm in my veins, and yet everything felt colder, louder, sharper. Back in the city, we weren't lovers wrapped in ocean air and soft linens. We were something else, something curated, controlled. The first time I noticed it was at dinner. We were seated at some rooftop restaurant Rafael liked, the kind with a wait list that stretched for months. He'd arranged the reservation like a general planning a siege. The press was tipped off discreetly. Cameras lingered near the velvet ropes. And just before we stepped out of the car, he leaned in close and whispered,
Touch my arm. Smile like you're proud to be mine.
I did it. I always did it. Because this was the agreement, the arrangement, the facade. But that night it stung. Because I was proud to be his. Not just for show. Not for the headlines. I was falling for him, and it terrified me. He kissed my temple when the flashbulbs went off. Brushed my hair behind my ear with a tenderness that felt real. But it was only later, as I peeled off my dress and climbed into our bed, that I realized what was truly haunting me. It wasn't just that I loved him. It was that he might only want me when I looked like her, and was everywhere. In the way he asked me to wear my hair up. In the way he complimented my lipstick, a shade I never wore before. In the questions he avoided when we were alone, and the perfect smiles he practiced when we weren't. I wasn't stupid. I knew he hadn't let go of her. The sister who ran. The one who left him at the altar. Sometimes when we were alone, he'd look at me like I was a puzzle with one wrong piece. Like he wanted me, but something didn't quite fit. And yet, when his hands were on me, when his mouth claimed mine, when his body pressed me into the mattress, none of that mattered. We were fire and friction and desperation. Every time he touched me, it was like he was trying to burn out the parts of himself that still remembered her. One night, he came home late. He didn't say a word when he walked into the bedroom. Just stood there, jacket unbuttoned, tie hanging loose. I was in bed, wearing one of his shirts again. He crossed the room in 3 steps and kissed me like he was starved. There was no space for questions. No time to think. He laid me down and spread my thighs with his hands, his tongue tracing a path down my neck, over my breasts, until I was arching, gasping, begging. Raphael, I whispered, my voice breaking. Say my name. And he did. But something in the way he said it made my heart twist. I wanted to believe it was me he was seeing, me he was loving. But some nights I wasn't so sure. And still, I let him in. Because I was already lost in him. Addicted to the way he made me feel. Cherished in the dark, even if I was invisible in the light. Maybe this is what love feels like. I thought, my fingers tangled in his hair as he moved inside me. Slow and deep. A little madness. A little sweetness. And a whole lot of pain I wasn't ready to admit.
She was laughing in the car, hair loose, legs curled under her in that tight black dress that had made my hands twitch under the dinner table all night. I couldn't stop staring at her mouth, stained crimson from too much red wine, too many toasts. She looked wild, flushed, unapologetically alive. And I hated how much I wanted her. The driver pulled up to the penthouse. I helped her out, her heel catching on the curb. sending her stumbling into me. She grinned, slurred a little.
Oops. Careful, husband.
The words struck something raw in my chest. Inside, the silence closed around us, heavy and expectant. We hadn't said much on the way back. The dinner had been for the board, photos, speeches, performances. Jessica had played her role perfectly. Smile sharp, dress impeccable, hair pulled into a sleek bun that Ain used to wear. Exactly how I asked her to. She waited until we were halfway up the stairs to let out.
You know what's funny? You don't even see me. You see her. Every time.
She said, yanking off her heels. I turned slowly. Jessica, not tonight.
No. Let's talk about it tonight. While we're both drunk enough to be honest. You tell me to dress like her. You say it's for the press. For the deal. For the narrative. But I see the way you look at me when I look like her.
She tossed the shoes to the floor and stalked past me, barefoot, fire in her eyes. I clenched my jaw. It's not like that.
Then what is it? Because it sure as hell feels like you're using me as some N-shaped bandage for your ego.
My voice was low, defensive, sharp. You think I want to do this? I only asked you to act like her because of the news, Jessica. The stories. The damn rumors that we pulled a switch at the altar. I'm trying to control the damage. Her eyes flashed.
No. You're trying to control me.
I strode toward her, fast, furious. I wanted you since the day you walked down that aisle in her place.
Then why are you trying to erase me?
She shouted, voice cracking. Silence cracked between us like a whip. I could hear her breathing. Hard, shallow, furious. Her cheeks were flushed, eyes glassy with tears and wine and everything we'd been pretending not to feel. Then she laughed bitterly.
You want to know what's funny? That night, our first night, when you touched me like you couldn't breathe without it.
I froze. She licked her lips. Her voice dropped.
I'd never been with anyone before.
My breath caught. She turned away, walking toward the window like it didn't matter.
Not that it made a difference, right? Because to you, I was already a woman who slept with any man. Her sister's fiancé. You thought I'd done this before, that I knew how to pretend. But I didn't. I didn't want it to be a performance. Not that time.
She laughed softly. I couldn't speak. My chest burned. My fists clenched at my sides. She'd been a virgin. That night on the rug, her skin warm from the firelight. Her mouth gasping my name like it meant something. She'd given me everything, and I hadn't even noticed. A sick mix of guilt and possessive hunger twisted in my gut. Jessica, I said low dark. She turned to face me, arms crossed, defiant even through the wobble in her stance.
Yeah.
I stalked toward her, gripping her wrist, pulling her close. Why the hell didn't you tell me?
Because it didn't matter. Because you weren't supposed to matter.
God, she was right. I kissed her before I could think. Hard, unforgiving. She gasped against my mouth, but didn't pull away. Her nails dug into my arms as I backed her into the wall, mouth trailing down her neck, hungry for every inch I'd taken for granted. You don't get to hide that from me, I growled against her skin. Not anymore.
Too late. You already did.
And still, she pulled me closer, and I let her.
The morning light touched the edges of our bedroom like it had a secret to tell. I sat on the edge of the bathtub, the plastic stick in my shaking hand. It wasn't supposed to be real. I stared at the two pink lines as if they might disappear if I blinked hard enough. They didn't. I wasn't supposed to be pregnant, but I was. I could still feel the echo of last night on my skin, the kiss we'd shared after the argument. Too raw to be romantic, too desperate to be called love. Rafael had taken me up against the wall, on the stairs, then again in our bed, as if trying to erase everything I'd said. And I had let him. I always did. Because for a few minutes, when he touched me like that, I could almost believe I was his. Not Ain. Not a stand-in. Not a performance. Just me. But morning is cruel. It always is. Especially now. I pulled my knees to my chest, resting my forehead there, trying to slow the storm rising in my chest. I didn't take birth control, I never needed to. And we had been careful. Except that one night. The first night. The night I never told him was my first, when I bled for him, in silence. We used protection. But something must have gone wrong. I remembered the faint snap of latex, the way neither of us stopped. Too lost in each other, too stupidly hungry. God. This wasn't supposed to happen. We were pretending, right? That was the deal. A fake marriage. A convenient image for the media. A cover-up for the scandal my sister caused when she left him at the altar. But somewhere between the lies and the heat, the way he looked at me when he thought I didn't notice, I let myself believe. And now, I touched my stomach with a trembling hand, not because I felt anything yet, but because I knew. There was something inside me. His. Ours. But he didn't want me. He wanted her. Even when he kissed me, there was always this tension behind it, like he was chasing a memory I didn't belong in. He saw, and when we walked red carpets, he gave me her perfume. He asked me to wear her dress to that charity gala in Milan last month. And I did it. Every single time. Because I was afraid that if I didn't become her, he'd remember that he never wanted me. But now there was no hiding. I closed my eyes and whispered into the silence of the bathroom. He's going to hate this. And still my hand stayed pressed to my belly. Because maybe, just maybe, this child would be the only thing I ever had that was truly mine. Not borrowed. Not stolen. Not shared with Anne. Mine. Even if I had no idea how to tell him. Even if the truth would burn us both alive.
There was something off in her silence. The way Jessica moved through the house, quieter, slower, as if each breath was heavier than the last. I'd watched her for days, trying to pretend nothing was different. But I knew her too well now. Or, at least, I thought I did. It all came to a head late one night. The rain tapped against the glass, soft but relentless, like a reminder of the storm building between us. I found her in the kitchen, standing barefoot in one of my shirts, holding a mug she hadn't touched. "Jess," I said, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed. "What's going on with you?" She looked up at me like a deer caught in headlights. And for the first time, she didn't lie. She just closed her eyes and whispered,
"I need to tell you something."
My heart dropped before she even said the words.
"I'm pregnant."
The air thinned. "What?" I stepped forward. "That's not possible. Every time we..."
"I know. We always use protection. Except..."
she said quickly, voice trembling. I stared at her, already hearing the crack in her voice. "Except what, Jessica?" Her throat bobbed as she swallowed.
"That first night, the night by the fire, when I lost my virginity, I think the condom broke. I didn't realize it until the next morning. And I wasn't on birth control yet. I didn't think I needed to be."
I ran a hand through my hair, backing away slightly like the words had slapped me. My chest burned, not because I was angry, but because I didn't know what the hell to do with the surge of emotions flooding me all at once. And then she said it.
"Maybe this is karma. For pretending to be Anne. For trying so hard to be someone else for you."
That snapped me out of it. "Don't," I said, voice low, sharp. I moved to her, gripping the edge of the counter beside her. "I never saw you as Anne. Never." Her gaze flicked to mine, uncertain, vulnerable. "I needed you to look like her, for the press, for the damage control. But I never once touched you and thought of her. You were always you, Jessica. You drive me crazy. You make me feel things I've spent years trying to shut off. And no version of Anne ever did that." Tears welled in her eyes. But she didn't cry. She just looked at me like she didn't know whether to believe me or run from me. My fingers touched her cheek, slow, deliberate. "If you're carrying my child, you don't do it alone." She blinked, the air between us electric and fragile. You don't get to disappear. Not now. Not ever. And for the first time in days, she let me hold her. And I knew, deep in my gut, that everything had just changed, whether we were ready or not.
I was peeling an orange at the kitchen counter when she walked in, like a ghost from a life I never really got to live.
Ain.
My hand froze midair. The scent of citrus, the quiet hum of the morning. Everything died in that second. She stood in the doorway like she owned the house, like she hadn't set fire to everything, and walked away.
Hey, sis.
Her voice was soft, too soft. A tone I remembered from childhood, always used before stealing something that was mine. I turned to face her fully. She looked the same, of course, hair perfectly styled, heels clicking against marble like punctuation. The only difference was that this time, I didn't shrink in her presence. "What are you doing here, Ain?" She gave me that trademark Morgan smile. The one that got her out of trouble, got her into magazines, got her fiancé she didn't even bother showing up for.
I came to get my life back.
She said, as if that wasn't the most violent thing she could have possibly said to me. I felt the nausea rise in my throat, but not from the pregnancy this time. From the sheer audacity. "You left it," I said flatly. "At the altar. In front of hundreds of people. You don't get to waltz back in like this is some romantic comedy where everyone forgets Act 1. Anne's gaze flicked to my stomach. And suddenly, the world tilted.
You're pregnant.
I didn't respond. I didn't need to.
Jessica, you slept with Rafael?
She murmured, stepping forward. I laughed, bitter and dry. I married Rafael. That cracked her perfect face. But I wasn't done. You didn't just run from him, Ain. You ran from the empire, the pressure, the expectations, and you left me to clean up the mess. And now that I've built something real out of your ashes, you want it back?
I loved him.
You loved what he represented, I snapped. You loved the headlines, the photos, the ring. But Rafael, you never even tried to know him, and took a long breath.
And you did? You think sleeping with him and playing dress-up makes you the better sister?
My heart cracked, but I kept my chin high. I think carrying his child while you were off pretending none of us existed does. Her silence was thunderous. And then she said the thing I feared most.
He's not in love with you, Jessica.
I flinched, because part of me believed that. Still, no matter what he'd whispered in bed, no matter how tenderly he'd touched my belly last night, I wasn't sure where the real started and where the pretending ended. But here's what I knew. I couldn't let her win. Not this time. Not again. Because maybe Rafael was never mine to begin with. But now he wasn't hers either. And I'd fight with everything I had to keep it that way.
The penthouse was too quiet, except for the voices, two of them, intertwined in low tension, sharp with accusation, bitter with history. Ain and Jessica, two women with the same blood running through their veins, and yet more different than any strangers. I stepped into the living room, where they sat in a fragile ceasefire on opposite ends of the ivory couch. Jessica was stiff, jaw tight, arms crossed over her chest like armor. Ain, all elegance and false calm, wore that smile that once fooled me. It didn't anymore.
I suppose you're here to tell us who wins.
Ain said smoothly, brushing invisible lint from her sleeve. Jessica didn't even flinch.
I'm not a prize.
Jessica murmured. No, she wasn't. She never was. But she had become my turning point. And now, she was carrying my child. I looked them both, one for my past, one shaping my future. And I couldn't breathe. My heart pulled toward Jessica, like it had a mind of its own. My dreams? Hers. My hunger? Hers. My torment? Hers, too. But my fear still belonged to Ain. I need time, I said abruptly, my voice harsher than I meant. I can't do this right now. Jessica's head tilted slightly. Ain blinked, and I walked out, not like a man who knew what he wanted, but like a coward afraid of how much he already did. I drove for hours. No destination, just silence, until the city blurred into shadow, and guilt finally gave way to clarity. Jessica never asked to be chosen. She never begged, never schemed. She just stood there, day after day, being more real than anyone I'd ever known. And Ain? She came back like the world had waited, like I had waited. But the truth was, I hadn't, not even for a second. Later, I sent Ain a message, dinner, just us, 9 p.m., La Rue. She came, of course. She always came when she thought she had something to gain. We sat at a corner table. She was dressed like a memory, elegant, curated, but it didn't touch me anymore.
You look serious.
She said, sipping wine. I am.
Is this about Jessica?
It's about me, I replied, and the fact that you and I were done. She set the glass down a little too hard.
Rafael, you can't honestly believe she...
I don't care what you think of her. I couldn't. I care that I see her. I dream about her. I wake up needing to hear her voice before I remember my own name. She didn't steal anything from you. You gave me up the day you ran.
She's not me.
Ain said, quiet, bitter. No, I said, eyes locked on hers. She's everything you never were. Kind, brave, honest. She doesn't wear masks. She doesn't try to control me. She doesn't pretend. His lips parted as if to fight back. But I didn't let her. I'm building a life with her, a family. You had your chance and you chose a different path. That chapter's over. She looked at me, then really looked, and she knew. Whatever hope she carried, I had burned it. I left her sitting there, alone with her wine and her perfectly rehearsed heartbreak. And as I stepped into the night, I felt the weight finally shift. Not gone, but moving towards something that scared the hell out of me. Something real. Something like love.
Sometimes silence screams louder than a fight. After Raphael walked out of that room, leaving me and Ain sitting there like two sides of a war he didn't want to win, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't ask him to choose me. But God, I wanted him to. Instead, I grabbed my coat, wrapped my scarf tight around my neck, and walked out of the penthouse. I didn't know where I was going, just away from that suffocating room. Away from Anne's smug expression. Away from the hollow echo of a man too afraid to face what we were becoming. The air outside bit against my cheeks, sharp and cool. The city was pulsing around me, alive and indifferent, like it had no idea my world was unraveling. I crossed the street, waited at the light, kept walking, until I stopped. My feet froze. My breath caught. Across the avenue, under the soft golden glow of La Rue's front windows, I saw them. Raphael and Ain. He was leaning forward slightly, hands clasped together, eyes locked on her like she was saying something worth hearing. She looked elegant, of course. Calm, in control. She always knew how to make a scene look like she belonged in it. I stood there, invisible in the crowd, watching the man I loved sitting across from the woman I would never be. And something inside me broke. Not loud, not dramatic, just quietly, like a single thread pulling loose from fabric that had been holding too much weight. I turned around, walked back to the penthouse, my heels silent on the marble floor, the elevator colder than usual, the silence inside deafening. Everything still smelled like him. Like us. But there was no us. Not anymore. I went to the closet, pulled out my suitcase. Slowly, methodically, I folded each piece of clothing like I wasn't packing up the pieces of a dream that never really belonged to me. I paused when I saw the drawer with his shirts, the one I always borrowed when I couldn't sleep. I almost reached for one. Almost. Instead, I closed it. I left the keys on the kitchen counter. Didn't leave a note, didn't slam the door, just walked out, quietly, with dignity, and with my hand protectively resting over the smallest beginning of a life growing inside me. A life that deserved more than to be someone's second chance. A life I would protect, even if it meant walking away with a heart that would never stop whispering his name.
The second I walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. The penthouse was too still, too silent. The kind of silence that doesn't greet you, it warns you. My footsteps echoed off marble, past the foyer, through the hallway that still smelled faintly of her vanilla shampoo. I expected to find her in the bedroom, curled up with a book, or maybe pretending not to wait up for me. But the bed was empty. No blanket draped over her side. No cardigan tossed over the chair. No light left on for me. Jessica? No answer. I called again. Checked the bathroom, the kitchen. Nothing. Then I opened her closet. It was half empty. I blinked, stared at the space where her shoes used to be. The little jewelry tray by the mirror, gone. My pulse shot up. I pulled out my phone and called her. Straight to voicemail. Again and again and again. I texted, emailed, called from the landline. I even checked the building's cameras. Nothing but an elevator ride down from hours ago. One suitcase. One woman. No goodbye. The doorman said she left quietly, that she looked calm. I wanted to scream at him. How the hell could she look calm while walking out of my life? Days passed, then weeks. Now it's been 3 months. I've had teams look for her discreetly. Every private investigator in the city knows her face now. None of them have found a damn thing. It's like she vanished into air. And in this penthouse, the silence roars. Her laughter used to bounce off these walls. Her perfume used to linger in every room. Her body used to warm the left side of my bed. Now, cold, empty, lifeless. And I finally understand what I was too much of a coward to admit before. I didn't love Jessica because she was Anne's sister. I didn't love her because she was soft or sweet or uncomplicated. I loved her because she was her. I loved her because when everything else in my life was polished and sterile and hollow, she was the one thing that made it feel real. And that baby, our baby. I wake up at night, wondering if it's a boy or a girl, if they'll have her smile, if I'll ever get the chance to hold him. I wanted Jessica because she was safe. But now, I want her even if it's the riskiest thing I've ever done. I want her because she's the only person who's ever truly seen me and stayed. And now she's gone because I let her think she was temporary. But I swear to God, if I ever find her again, I'm never letting her go.
The first thing I learned about running away is that silence isn't peace, it's just a different kind of noise. It hums beneath the floorboards of this little hotel where I now work the reception desk 6 days a week. It echoes in the rustle of old curtains, in the rain that taps endlessly on the roof of my studio apartment upstairs. It's in the weight of my belly now, growing heavier each week, a quiet, constant reminder of everything I lost and everything I'm still holding on to. They call me Evelyn here. Evelyn James. I chose it on a whim. It felt soft, forgettable, safe. The owner, Mrs. Langford, is kind. She doesn't ask questions. She gave me the job 2 days after I showed up with nothing but a backpack and a fake smile. The guests are mostly quiet tourists, passing through, sipping tea, taking photos of trees. They never look at me twice. I blend in. But even in this sleepy little town, I feel it. Eyes, whispers. A shadow that follows me when I walk home from the market. The detective who came last month, pretending to be a lost hiker, asking if I'd seen a woman who fits your description. I said no, smiled like I wasn't shaking inside. I know Rafael's looking for me. I've heard enough. A missed news headline in the diner. A hushed conversation on the bus station bench. Someone's searching, but he's too late. I trusted him with my body, with my soul, with everything. And then I saw him again with Anne, at that table. The woman who once had his ring. The woman who still haunts every mirror I look into. I couldn't stay and watch myself become her shadow. So I ran. Because I didn't want to be the second choice. The consolation prize. The well, since and left. No. I left first, before it could destroy me. But some nights, when the motel is quiet and my baby kicks softly against my ribs like they already know how to comfort me, I close my eyes and I let myself imagine. I imagine Rafael bursting through the front doors of this broken little hotel. His shirt half untucked, rain in his hair, eyes wild. He's found me, finally, and he's not here to claim me out of guilt. Not because of duty, but because he finally realized I was never her. I was always mine, and I could have been his. But when I open my eyes, it's just me. Me and a baby I haven't named yet. Me and this quiet, distant world I've built out of ashes and stolen hope. And I tell myself I'm okay, that I made the right choice, that I don't need him. Even if some nights, I still cry into the pillow like my heart doesn't believe me.
I found her. Months of hell, of searching, of silence, of waking up in a cold bed and convincing myself she'd walk back through the door. But she never did. Until now, the moment I saw her again, everything else stopped existing. Jessica stood behind the reception counter of a quiet little inn, her hand cradling the curve of her belly. Her hair was pulled back, her cheeks were flushed, and despite the exhaustion in her eyes, she looked more beautiful than I'd ever seen her. I didn't say her name, not at first. Jessica. No, Evelyn. That's what they call her here. But her eyes, they still looked at me like I was both the fire and the burn. Her mouth parted when she saw me.
Rafael?
Jessica. My voice cracked. She took a slow, careful breath. Her gaze hardened, just a little.
What are you doing here?
I came for you, I said, stepping closer, to take you home. She laughed, sharp and bitter.
Home? You mean the penthouse where you left me and went out to dinner with Anne?
That stopped me cold. She tilted her head.
Yeah, I saw you. You didn't even notice I was there, walking by. I saw the two of you together, sitting close like nothing ever ended between you.
Jessica, I said, voice low urgent. That night, I called Ain there to end it. For good. Her lips parted, but no words came. I stepped even closer, close enough to see the shimmer in her eyes. I told her there was no future between us, that whatever she thought we had was over a long time ago, that I didn't want her, that I was going to build a family with you. Jessica blinked, her throat working. I didn't love her then, Jessica, I continued. I never did. Ain was easy, predictable, and I liked that because it meant I didn't have to feel anything real. But you terrify me because everything I feel for you is real. Her eyes burned into mine.
Then why did you run that day?
Because I was a coward. I swallowed hard because loving you feels like losing control. And control was the only thing I ever thought kept me safe. The moment stretched between us like a taut wire. Then suddenly Jessica gasped. Her knees buckled and her hand flew to her belly. My heart stopped. Jessica? She nodded, breath hitching.
My water just broke.
Fuck. The world snapped into motion. I caught her in my arms, lifting her like she was made of glass, like I'd shatter too if I dropped her. We raced to the car, my grip locked with hers as her body tensed through each contraction. On the way to the hospital, with her hand crushing mine, I whispered everything I'd been too much of a fool to say before. I love you, Jessica. Not for what you were supposed to be. Not because of any deal or arrangement. I love you because you're fire and soul and fight. I love you for your messy hair, your fierce opinions, your strength. She stared at me, lips trembling. You're nothing like Ain. And that's exactly why I love you. You don't need to be anyone else, Jess. You've already been everything I never knew I needed. Tears welled in her eyes. But she didn't speak, because the next contraction hit like a wave. By the time we reached the hospital, she was barely holding it together. Nurses rushed her inside. When they asked whose name would go on the baby's paperwork, I didn't hesitate. Not mine, hers, Jessica's, because I didn't want to own anything. I wanted to belong to her, to our child, to the life we hadn't finished building yet. But damn it, I was ready now. Ready to love without conditions, without contracts, only with my heart.
There are moments in life that split you open, not in pain, but in truth, in beauty, in surrender. And for me, it happened the moment I heard my son cry. His first breath stole the air from my lungs. Rafael was there, holding my hand so tight, like letting go meant I'd vanish again. I felt his forehead pressed to mine, the heat of his tears mixing with my own. He didn't say anything for a while. He just stayed, breathing with me, shaking with me, loving me, not with promises or grand gestures, but with presence. The doctor placed our baby on my chest, and my whole world rearranged itself. Tiny fingers, a perfect wrinkled face, a piece of my soul I didn't even know was missing until now. Rafael kissed my temple, then my cheek, then the corner of my mouth like it was instinct, like he'd been waiting his entire life to kiss me like this, not as a transaction, not as part of some damn contract, but because he wanted me, because he loved me.
You did it. God. Jessica, you're incredible.
I looked at him, really looked. The same man who once ran boardrooms with the flick of a wrist now looked completely unraveled. He wasn't a CEO with sharp eyes and clipped commands anymore. He was just a man. My man. And this was our beginning. I traced my fingertips over the back of his hand, still clutching mine. I thought you'd still choose her, I said softly. That somewhere in the back of your mind, Ain would always be safer, familiar. His gaze darkened, but not with anger, with urgency.
Don't give her another second of your thoughts. You were never her substitute, Jessica. You were never second best.
I swallowed. But she's
nothing. She was part of a version of my life that felt easier to control, predictable, empty. You're the only woman I've ever fought for. You didn't make sense to me, Jessica. You undid me.
His lips brushed my forehead. I let out a shaky breath. You searched for months.
I was going insane without you. The silence in that damn penthouse. The way my chest ached just walking into the kitchen you used to fill with laughter. I couldn't function.
His thumb brushed the tears from my cheek. I wasn't hiding from you, I whispered. I was trying to protect myself. And him.
I know, but I would have torn the world apart to find you. Not because of guilt, not because of duty. Because you're my home, Jessica. You and this tiny miracle on your chest.
I looked down at our son. His lips puckered in his sleep. His breath was soft, steady. Rafael pressed a kiss to the crown of his head. I want to name him together, I said. No lawyers. No signatures. Just us.
Good, because I burned the contract.
I blinked. You what? He leaned in, smirking like the arrogant bastard I'd first met. But now, it made my stomach flutter in the most dangerous way.
I signed it, then I burned it, because no clause could ever define what you mean to me.
And then, because the world was merciful for once, he kissed me. Not rushed, not hungry, just full of awe, of softness, of love unfiltered. And in that hospital room, wrapped in sweat and tears and the smell of newborn skin, I realized something. This was the first time I wasn't afraid of what came next. Because Rafael didn't just find me. He chose me. No contracts. No clauses. Just love.
This time, there were no contracts. No lawyers waiting in another room. No deadlines disguised as vows. No silk-thin lies covering the truth between us. This time, there was just her, Jessica, and the soft weight of our son in her arms as she walked toward me. A white dress flowing around her like morning light. Her hair curled loosely down her shoulders. Her skin glowing. Her eyes locked on mine like I was the only man in the world. And I was because nothing existed outside that moment. 6 months had passed since I held her in a hospital bed and watched her fall asleep with our baby on her chest. 6 months since I kissed her forehead and whispered promises that had no fine print. And now, she was walking toward me with that same fire in her eyes, the one that burned through my walls, shattered my control, and made me realize that love was never meant to be a negotiation. It was meant to be earned. And damn it, I had spent every second of these last months doing just that. We kept it small, just family, a few close friends. The air smelled like lavender and something sweet from the bakery Jessica insisted on ordering from because it reminded her of home. I stood at the altar barefoot in the grass because she said that love like ours should feel the earth. And when she reached me, barefoot too, of course, she passed our baby into my arms like it was the most natural thing in the world.
He looks like you, but he's got my stubbornness.
She whispered, her lips brushing the corner of my mouth. I chuckled softly, my thumb grazing her cheek. Poor kid. She laughed, God, that laugh. And the world tilted a little more in my favor. The officiant said words, but I didn't hear them. All I saw was Jessica, her freckles, her lips, painted the faintest blush, the way her body leaned into mine like we'd been sculpted to fit together. And when it was my turn to speak, I didn't look at anyone but her. No more papers, I said. No more signatures. I've signed with my heart this time, Jessica. With every breath I take, with every minute I get to wake up beside you. She blinked quickly, lips trembling, and I knew she was trying not to cry. You're not a clause in my life. You're the reason I tore up every damn rule I ever lived by. And when she said yes, I kissed her like I had all the time in the world, like I'd waited a lifetime just to taste the promise on her mouth. Later, as the sun dipped low and our son curled against my chest, I noticed the small box on the gift table. The card was ivory, tied with a thin gold ribbon, and the handwriting was unmistakable. Hands. Jessica noticed it too, her body still against mine as I carefully opened the envelope. Inside, a simple note, short but not cold.
Jessica and Rafael, I've had time to think. I was wrong about so much. Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. Imperfect, raw, honest. I'm not ready to be there yet, but I'm happy you found each other. Be good to one another. And to that beautiful boy. And...
Jessica's breath hitched just slightly, her fingers brushing over the card as if the words had weight.
She meant it.
Yeah, I murmured, sliding my hand around her waist, drawing her closer. And she's right. We have something real. The kind of real that doesn't need a contract. Just two hearts, finally choosing the same forever. Every damn day, that night, we held each other under the stars with nothing between us but the truth. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want control. I only wanted her.
The night air was warm, humming softly through the open balcony doors. The kind of night that wrapped around your skin like silk. And we were alone. Our son had just turned 1. We'd thrown him a little party. Balloons everywhere, cake all over his tiny fingers, and Rafael chasing him around the penthouse like he was the happiest man alive. I was. But tonight was ours. Rafael was already in bed, shirtless, leaning back against the pillows with that lazy, sinful grin that still made my knees weak. The moonlight hit the angles of his chest, the curve of his jaw, and I stood in the doorway a second longer, just watching him.
Why are you looking at me like that?
He asked, voice low, like velvet and danger. I crossed the room without a word. My silk nightgown whispered over my thighs, barely hiding what I knew he already wanted. He sat up just enough to take me by the hips, pulling me between his legs. His hands were warm, steady, reverent. I missed this, I whispered, threading my fingers into his hair. He looked up at me, gaze burning.
You've had all of me from the start, Jessica. You just didn't know it.
I leaned down, and our mouths met. No rush, no firestorm, just that slow, unraveling kiss that told me everything I needed to hear. that he was mine and I was his. Still. Always. He lifted me onto the bed, laid me down like I was the most precious thing he'd ever held. His fingers slid over the strap of my gown, pulling it down, exposing my skin inch by inch. My breath hitched. His lips followed the path of his hands, soft and possessive, worshipful. Every kiss was a promise, every breath a vow. He took his time, tracing, tasting, teasing, until I was arching into him, gasping his name like it was the only word I remembered. And when he finally entered me, it was slow, deep, perfect. We moved together in a rhythm older than both of us. His hands locked with mine, our bodies speaking every truth our hearts had once been too afraid to say. I felt every ounce of love in the way he held me, in the way he whispered against my throat.
You feel like home.
And when I trembled beneath him, when he followed me over the edge with a soft, broken groan, he didn't let go. He held me through it, kissing my forehead, brushing hair from my face, letting the silence stretch around us like a second skin. I curled into his side, heart still racing, cheek pressed to his chest. His fingers drew lazy circles on my bare back. That's when I reached for the drawer. The small silver-wrapped box trembled a little in my hand as I passed it to him. He looked curious, still slightly breathless, and carefully opened it. His breath caught. Inside, a tiny white onesie. Bold black letters. Promoted to Big Brother. And under it, the pregnancy test. Positive. He blinked, then looked at me.
Are you serious? Jess.
His voice cracked in the middle. I nodded, smiling through my tears. We're doing this again, Rafael. He cupped my face and kissed me. Deep, slow, lingering.
This time, I won't miss a single moment.
He looked down at me, eyes lit with something raw and vulnerable.
Not one kick, not one craving, not one night where you can't sleep and just want to be held. I will be here, Jess. All of it. I'm not letting go.
Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. And my heart, God, my heart swelled so full it hurt. He wrapped me in his arms, pulling the sheet over us both. I tucked my face against his neck and closed my eyes, breathing him in. Our past was messy. Our story, far from perfect. But in this moment, wrapped in his love, carrying our second child, and knowing he would never walk away again, I knew one thing without a single doubt. This was forever. And forever finally felt real.